Okay, so now we're actually in the IDE service, if you like. So we've created the instance, and everybody gets their own URL for their instance as a tenant, if you like, and they log in with the password, of course. Um, and you're dropped into an editor. So this saves a lot of time, of course, for learners because they don't have to install the editor, they don't have to find out where to download it from, blah, 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 blah. You might have students that are on Windows, you might have students that are on Mac, etc., etc. I had a student, for example, which, for better or worse, was on a evaluated Windows version. So their copy of Windows had expired, for example, and was struggling to have any more sort of things installed onto it and things like that. You've got students from all sorts of different situations. So anything that you can do to make it easier for students to get on board with learning the concepts of programming and hiding some of these noisy tasks in the background is great. So we drop them into an editor, and there's everything is inside a container, and we're built on top of something called Incus, which is a system for, it's kind of like a hypervisor alternative to VMware, alternative to Proxmox, that sort of thing. So already, for those that are more technical, I'm hearing you scream about security and things like that. They've got this root access. We're going to ignore all of that because that's not what we're here for. We're here for learning, teaching, and understanding how things are put together. It's intentional. We're intentionally leaving a lot of these things lying around. It's in a safe environment though, because of course we can just delete and recreate these instances however we like. The infrastructure itself, we can install this on a server. But yeah, just do a quick run around. This is using the VS Code server, which is why it can be web-based. And a lot of items are installed already. So we can jump ahead because we've already got extensions pre-installed for Python, Java, and we've also got Node installed as well. So for example, if I just jump ahead and create a simple app in Python and print hello world, the classic um, walk that everyone does when learning to programming. Sometimes they learn to spell as well. There we go. And we can run the application. Now, we've got run and debug already set up as well. Like you might be a more advanced programmer. You might know that you can just call Python um, from the terminal. You might not know that. Again, it's setting things up so they can just start going from scratch straight away, or not from scratch is what I'm trying to say here. Um, but the terminal is there too, right? So the students have access to a terminal, and that's an opportunity to introduce what is command line, what is a terminal, how does that work? Um, at large cloud computing companies, for example, it's very useful that engineers have an understanding of what goes on behind the scenes, how services are built, and what what infrastructure sits behind the public services that customers use. At the end of the day, engineers need to know how they're built at the infrastructure side, at the operations side, that sort of thing. So different learners will be interested in going deep on any number of those different topics. So, for example, we can just simply run our app there as well, and that opens up an opportunity to talk about the command line. So we could go through making directories, for example, and show how they ended up appearing on the file system, etc., etc. In addition to that, there's a whole database setup. So if I go to PHP my admin, so again with their URL, they can just go to PHP my admin, and this is a classic um, database tool that a lot of classic web developers are familiar with. And so if I just log in here quickly, again, they get a um, default login. So part of the courses that web development or data science courses might do on digital bootstrap programs that I was involved in, they might go over basic database concepts. So again, they've not had to install Microsoft SQL Server, install MariaDB or Postgres or MySQL on their local machine. The focus is on learning about databases. So I had a student that was learning, transitioning from conservation, and they wanted to do tracking on movement of animals across the world, which was fascinating. And we went through how to create databases and the normalization process and foreign keys, that sort of thing. And depending on what level you want to go, um, we've got this interface set up out of the box. So I created a database called Animal. I wish I'd called that Animals, to be fair, but I'll create a table called Animal as well, and I'll say it has 2 columns, and off we go. So yeah, we've got a database set up there, and then we can talk about queries. Select all from Animal. If I can remember how to do SQL myself, um, where's the go button? There it is. And I have forgotten how to do SQL myself. I think I need to perhaps actually create that table. Yes, I didn't create the table. Animals, number of columns. Let's just create a table with 1 column, which you wouldn't really normally do. And then we'll do a refresh. And have we got that table created now? No tables found in database. Okay, I don't want this entire video to be me debugging this, but you get the concept. We'll do a table of 2 columns, and I might be missing a. Okay, here's a preview. Of course, of course. So part of the understanding here in creating databases is types. So maybe we have an auto increment table, and that's a nice discussion about auto increment and primary keys and things like that. And maybe we have a varchar for that's the ID record, and here's the name of the animal, etc. So now I've actually created that table. I need to create a valid length. That opens up a discussion about storage space and usability as well. The classic example being names. People might assume that a name can only be 20 characters long when actually it could be a lot longer, etc. etc. Preview SQL. We're going to create the table again, a learning opportunity for creating for learning about SQL, the structured query language. It saves so much time for students. And there we go, we've got database. So what have we got? We've got the editor, we've got the database set up, so to learn about databases. And what I've not shown as well is the terminal. So there's an open source project called TTYD, and we log in here again with their standard standard login. They've got a terminal to play with, so it can be quite overwhelming at first if you're a career changer going from a different industry to technology, this big black box. But again, it's a safe environment to learn from. And there's literally no command that they can do to break everything. Why? Because if they do break everything and if they do delete everything, their entire instance is backed up every few minutes. There's a snapshot system in the background. So as a teacher, you can rewind their instance. So you can learn from those big scary mistakes. Perhaps we have an accidental deletion of a database, for example, and the student's very upset. They've learned the lesson about drop tables. There's a famous meme of Bobby drop tables, of course, which is the classic, why did you name your child um, drop table students, which ultimately deletes all of the students in the table called students. But that's not all. You can also go to, I think it's called my app, and my app. No, I've forgotten the URL for that. Um, you can also go to a forward slash. Let's see if I can remember it. It's my web app. Let's go open up the back end. That's the whole point of this. So if we jump in here and we have a look at the queues. No, I won't go that deep right now in this video, but basically everyone has a URL that goes to my app, which is exposed on a particular port, so they can have a website going live as well to experience HTML and writing out their own web page connected to a database. So you get full cycle, so you do full stack development and learn how these things all connect together. And with all the noise around large language models, AI, etc., actually knowing how all these pieces fit together helps inform what kind of prompts and what kind of things you ask these LLMs. Because if you don't know what's possible, it's very hard to have the intuition and understand what's possible to build. So yeah, I'll leave the video here and probably do another quick one showing off the web aspect of this.